Hey there, Penguins fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. For today's special episode, we have another crossover with Jared Ellis of Locked On Hurricanes, as the Penguins and Hurricanes will be meeting for the third time in the last month, second time in the last week. They will play again in January to wrap up the season series, but this is a big one for the Penguins as they try to beat the Hurricanes for the first time this season, and we'll have a full preview right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs, and hey there, Penguins fans. I'm Jared Ellis, and I'm joined by Hunter from Locked On Penguins today, and we are back to preview yet another matchup between the Penguins and the Hurricanes. And of course, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts.
I know. Third time in not even a month that the two teams are hooking up for a matchup. Second time in be 4 days. So a lot of tough matchups right now for the Penguins. Their schedule is very tough, but glad we can come together for another crossover. Jared, the first two games I think have been true 50-50s between these two teams. I think the Penguins, I thought they played a bit better in the second matchup compared to the first one when they got a point. And I think this game is going to be really good as well.
Yeah, I expect the same with this game as well. These teams are definitely evenly matched. One thing, with going into this game, the Hurricanes, like you said, they're coming off of a win against the Rangers, and the Hurricanes have now won 6 straight with their win over the Devils. They have taken first place in the Metro Division and are now second in the NHL. And the Penguins are, again, no slouch either. While they are third in the Metro is super stacked right now. The Penguins are 8th in the NHL. So this is a top 10 matchup in the NHL.
Yeah. And, this is a potential playoff preview, sometime down in April or May. I think every other Metropolitan Division team is hoping that this ends in regulation and that it doesn't go to overtime, because I was tweeting the other day, it almost seems like the top 5 or 6 teams in the Metro just don't want to lose. I was just joking that I think they're going to win every single game the rest of the way and make this sweat. And, I did see you guys had that big win against the New Jersey Devils, who have now lost 6 in a row. It turns out you do not win the Stanley Cup in November, as some other people have liked to think that they did. But Jared, to talk to me about, that game a little bit. What have you seen from the Hurricanes in that game, and just, during this hot stretch that has just, made you more confident in them? Because, they started out a little slow. They're still dealing with a couple injuries. I know Aho, I believe, has been hurt. He didn't play in the game on Sunday against the Penguins. But, what have you been seeing lately from this team that, is just giving you more confidence?
Yeah, so since the last time, we talked, they've kind of kicked that losing streak. Ever since they got shut out by the Coyotes at home, I think it was like 3-0 or 4-0. They have not lost in regulation at home. And I want to say, actually, I think in general, they haven't lost in regulation, if I remember correctly. But that seemed to be really kicking the pants that they needed to really get going. They're firing on almost all cylinders right now. The one issue still being special teams. It has improved a bit since we last spoke, which is good. And the Penguins definitely have, and we'll talk about that later. But everything they seem to have gotten out of their own heads. They're like, all right, we're winning games. We got this. And they're playing like a team that should be contending for the Stanley Cup. And a big part of that is Pyotr Kochetkov. He has firmly planted himself in the Calder conversation. As of recording right now, he is second in the NHL in goals against. He is tied for third in save percentage and tied for first in shutouts. He has firmly planted himself in that conversation, and if it keeps up, maybe even Vezina conversation, because again, he's top 3 goalie in the league right now. And that has been a really big part of this. He is just playing so well. He's on a 10-game point streak himself. He's tied the longest in franchise history. Cam Ward had 3 of those 10-game point streaks back when he was playing here. And I want to say he's crept into top 5 in the NHL history. I know it's 13 was the longest point streak. I know that. I just don't remember where exactly it was for him. But he's been a big part of that. The team has really rallied behind him, and he's basically forced them to keep playing him. Nothing against Antiranta at all. When he is in, he has looked good, not great, but good. He definitely seems to be missing a step, kind of like Frederick Anderson was whenever he wasn't hurt. But he's forced himself into the number 1 goaltending spot for the Hurricanes, and the team has rallied behind it. And whenever Freddie does come back, I think it's a situation similar to Detroit. They're just rolling with 3 goalies because Piotr, he's playing so good, you can't send him back to Chicago.
No, I mean, I don't think you can. I mean, in the 2 games against the Penguins this year, he's played really well. He was making some dynamite saves, I thought, in the Sunday game. I think the goals that he allowed were not his fault at all. The Raquel goal was just a tip in front, and then the McGinn shot was just a beautiful one-timer. But I was going to ask Jared, but you kind of answered, like, when Freddie is ready to come back from his injury, just, how do they divide up the goalie starts there? It's going to be interesting. And then, you have to think about who starts in the playoffs, because I'm sure Carolina is going to get there. That's going to be a very interesting question. And I assume that, Kochetkov will be starting on Thursday. And, it's funny you talk about the goaltending being good there. Tristan Jarry continued his strong last 4 to 5 weeks with another win on Tuesday. He's 11-0-2 in his last 13 starts. He's getting close to, I believe, tying the record that Marc-Andre Fleury has for the longest point streak among goalies in franchise history. He is giving this team a chance to win every night, playing like the goalie that we all saw last year when he was top 10 in goals saved above expected, looking like a Vezina Trophy candidate for much of the season before he kind of slacked off towards the end of the year. But over the last 4 to 5 weeks, he, I think, is showing, I think, a lot of the fans and especially the management group that, this is for real. And if he keeps this up, he's a pending free agent. I think he could find himself getting a nice 4 to 5 year term contract with a nice raise, maybe 5.5 million. I'm always a bit hesitant to pay goalies top dollar just because I kind of view it as a running back position in the NHL. You can kind of get average goaltending of the NFL, excuse me. You can kind of get average goaltending for pennies on the dollar. But right now he is showing that he is a true number 1. And, he was one of the biggest reasons why the Penguins came back and won that game on Tuesday to get back into the win column. So, definitely, it's kind of the same with, the Penguins having a really good goalie playing right now, just like how Carolina is.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a goaltending battle for sure. I definitely see a very low scoring game. I think, we'll very much see, kind of like last game of, between us, where the winner probably has like 3 goals and that's it. And that third very well could just be an empty net goal.
Yeah.
So I definitely see something like that. These teams are definitely on the up from the last time we spoke. And, you did mention playoffs as well. I think that's a bit far out to kind of predict what is going to happen because it's months and months away. But yeah, whenever Freddie comes back, he'll obviously get his starts in there, of course. He is, technically the number 1 goalie here in Raleigh. But Piotr is definitely, gunning for that job for sure. And he heading into next season, Piotr is the only goalie under contract because he already signed his extension. And I think that how they'll divide them up whenever Freddie comes back, it'll be very interesting. I am not really sure how they're gonna do that, honestly. I think, like I said, they'll probably pull a Detroit, roll with 3 goalies until something happens, whether it be a trade or someone falters or hurt or whatever. But playoffs, I think it's too far out right now to kind of predict that. But with the way things are going, I would probably say it'd be, Piotr's the guy. He looked great in the playoffs last year. So, and he's just continuing to improve this year.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that series against the Bruins when he was starting. Like he started a couple games, if I recall correctly, Jared.
Yeah.
He was solid
Mhm.
in there, and I was almost, I think I think Ronta got most of the series against
Yeah.
the Rangers. Was
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
I figured that, but
Piotr did try to fight Brad Marchand, though.
I did remember seeing that. It's a tough customer over there trying to go
Oh,
after.
oh yeah, he doesn't take anything. He will for sure at some point in his career in the NHL get in a goalie fight. If someone's willing to drop him with him, he's gonna be game for sure. I guarantee it.
He'll pull a Ron Hextall and go after someone like he did with Larry Brown with or no, Larry Brown, yeah, with the Penguins, and that stuff.
Yeah. But one thing that I have noticed for the Penguins since we last spoke is that their special teams have improved a lot since we last spoke. And we'll talk about that right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, if you're wanting to place a bet on this game, betonline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. So get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. They've got you covered at betonline.net. If you're a basketball fan, if you're a Charlotte Hornets fan, I finally found my lucky Hornet shirt, so maybe they can turn a corner soon and get to double-digit wins. And, of course, if you're a Hurricanes fan or a Penguins fan, they got you covered as well, because BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get all of your betting info. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, when we last spoke, Hunter, both teams were really struggling in special teams. They're both bottom of the league, power play especially. But since we last spoke, both teams have improved. The Penguins especially. As of recording, the Penguins power play is currently sitting at 16th in the NHL at 22.9%. And their penalty kill is a third in the NHL at 84%. The Hurricanes power play is still towards the bottom. It has improved, eye test wise and percentage wise, it has gotten a bit better, but it's still bottom of the league at 27th in the NHL at 17.6%. Penalty kill has risen, though it is at 14th in the NHL at 80.2%. What has been a big catalyst behind the Penguins special teams looking more normal?
Yeah, I think that's one way to say it. And before I do answer that, I don't want to get my head ripped off. I'm sorry I said Larry Brown. It is Robbie Brown that Ron Hextall went after. I would have been crucified, and people probably would have stopped listening to the show. So that is embarrassing that I actually forgot Robbie Brown's name there. So I apologize about that. I'm having a case of the Mondays with that. I knew right away when I said it. I'm like, well, that's not who it was. Wrong Brown, but no, Robbie Brown. If you want to check that out, go on YouTube. It's hilarious. But as for your question about the special teams, 9 straight games now with a power play goal. Going into yesterday's game, that was the longest streak that they've had since Dan Bosman was the head coach in 2012, 2013. This is a new record in the Mike Sullivan era. But, you're starting to see it, excuse me, I wouldn't say take over games, but they're making their presence felt. Even in that game on Sunday against the Hurricanes, I don't think the power play looked that good because the Hurricanes penalty kill was pretty decent themselves. But they were still able to get a goal, even though it was on the third or fourth attempt, because you can't keep the Penguins off the score sheet forever if you keep giving them power plays. I really do think the zone entries have been a hell of a lot better. They're not trying to find that perfect play on the power play. They're just getting a lot of traffic in front of the net, whipping a bunch of shots from the slot area, and they're making it really tough on the opposition, and especially whichever goaltender is in net to see. And then eventually, of course, stop the puck on Tuesday night, for example. So Rickard Rakell draws the penalty on Keandre Miller. And the Penguins at that point, they have nothing, absolutely nothing. The first 30, 32 minutes. Sorry about that. I don't know
You're
why
good.
did you get this cough.
No, you're
But
good. My girlfriend has
30
one
to
too.
32 minutes, they have absolutely nothing. But they get that power play, and they're working the puck around the perimeter a little bit. And it finally comes to Malkin. He has some space in front of them. Rickard Rakell, beautiful screen in front of Shesterkin. And then Malkin just fires it to a space that Shesterkin can't see. And, those are the kind of goals that they're scoring right now because, again, they're making it really difficult on the opposition. But everything about the unit is on another level right now.
Mhm.
And that unit saved the Penguins last night. They scored 2 power play goals. They didn't really have much at even strength before then, and they kind of took a recipe of the Rangers' playoff success last year, and they applied it to this game. I think for the penalty kill, getting back Teddy Bluger about a month ago, I think it was just huge. The PK was starting to show signs of turning around before he came back, but he just makes that unit so much better with his ability to clear the puck when other players can't, his ability to get into shooting lanes, and just the overall impact that he has is nothing short of extraordinary. This is a top 5 unit in the league now. They were taking the Rangers lunch on their power play last night. I really think the Rangers threatened that much on the power play at all. And I was saying it during the losing streak, if they can just get some of these special teams and get the goaltending back on track, the rest will fall into place because their underlying metrics were really good. 5v5, they were crushing it. They were getting the finishing. They were just giving goals back on the penalty kill, and they were not taking advantage of getting power plays. And of course, they weren't getting saves. Now that has turned around, you've seen it pay huge dividends. They've won 8 out of 9. They've won 13 out of 16. And all the reasons that I listed for getting those units back on track have just been huge for the Penguins. And it's been really great to see.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a slower road for the Hurricanes, definitely in terms of their power play. But I forget which game it was, but the power play was absolutely abysmal, and everyone in post game was commenting on how bad it was, and that was a turning point for them there. And we have seen slow improvement. It has not turned around as quickly as Pittsburgh's has, but it's getting there. I do think whenever Sebastian Aho gets back, I know he has been skating, so hopefully he'll be back soon. I do feel whenever he comes back, the Hurricanes will see a bit more of a jump in it. In that game on Sunday, the Pittsburgh went 1 for 5 on the power play, and the Hurricanes went 0 for 3. And the Hurricanes, they definitely need one thing they need to do. Obviously, their penalty kill has been really good for the most part. They do need to get their penalties under control because it has seemed where they get a bit careless and a bit sloppy sometimes. And that has been a problem with the power play as well. Sometimes it feels a bit careless and a bit sloppy, and they're just passing the puck around. Zone entry has definitely been bad at times, gotten a bit better, but still just hasn't been great. But I think it's a problem I'd rather have now. Here in November now. God, it's about the end of December now. Oh my God. But I'd rather be having this issue now than come playoff time, I'd rather just all their issues in general with the offense looking drier than some Thanksgiving turkeys that we saw on Twitter and Instagram. I'd rather have those problems now than deal with them, come March and April. I do feel it will continue to improve. It's just going to be a very slow and painful road for sure for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, and I do think the Penguins they did pretty well against the Hurricanes power play on Sunday, from what I do recall. You kind of said it best. It looked like they were kind of just passing the puck around, didn't really testing Casey DeSmith as much on the main advantage. But man, that penalty kill that you guys do have, it is a very good unit. I mean, I was watching them really frustrating the Penguins in that Sunday matchup, forcing them to the perimeter, making zone entries a living hell. Honestly, they just weren't able to get set up a lot, which is, obviously the bread and butter for any power play, but especially for the Penguins, when they're just kind of dumping the puck in it's not working for them. So
Yeah.
I kind of noticed that the Hurricanes, they were just kind of stacking the blue line a little bit and just daring the Penguins to come in. And it worked for the Penguins on one power play goal, but for the other ones, they just didn't get a lot of good chances, especially on that first one, about 3 to 5 minutes into that game. Nothing was doing there. They got another one later on in the first, nothing doing there. That right there, if they were able to get a goal on one of those advantages, that could have set the tone for the rest of the game. But that's definitely a matchup that I'm going to be really watching for this one on Thursday.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Special teams is going to be a big one, for sure. I think, when it comes to the Hurricanes penalty kill, it has high standards to live up to. I mean, obviously, of recent memory over the past couple seasons, last year, especially being historically good. You look at your head coach, he was a fantastic defensive forward back when he was playing. You look at your captain, great defensive forward. I mean, they've all, over the past few years, they've always been a very stacked team in terms of defense. Offense, not so much. So that's going to be a really big sticking point, with this game coming up of, can the Hurricanes, take advantage of power play opportunities? Because gosh, I forget what game it was. It was like a 1-0 shutout. But the game-winning goal was a power play goal. It was the game up in Detroit. It was back on. It was Brady Shea's first ever power play goal. He'd played like over 400 some odd games and never had a power play goal. But it was the game up in Detroit on last Tuesday on the 13th.
Okay.
Power play, it showed up, and it was the difference maker. And we've seen that a lot, with the Hurricanes over the past couple weeks of power plays made a difference. And that's going to be important heading into this game, because it for sure is going to be, because the Penguins power play has improved so much that they're going to have to. And the Hurricanes, to prevent the Penguins getting power play opportunities, they got to clean it up and, not let the Penguins draw so many penalties, because like you said, you give them so many opportunities, they're going to take advantage of it. They gave them 5 last game. They really need to cut it back.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Hurricanes need to be a little more disciplined in that area, but there's still a lot more, I think, to get to in terms of this matchup, especially at even strength. If the Penguins maybe have a problem with playing Carolina, but just because they've been struggling against them the last couple of years. But before we do get to that, did you know that driving high is actually considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where it is illegal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you are wrong. Your friends can tell. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not, because the bottom line is if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. All right, we're back here on this special crossover of the Locked On Penguins and the Locked On Hurricanes podcast. I'm Hunter Hodes. That is Jared Ellis. So the 2 games that they've played this year so far, Jared, the Penguins and Hurricanes, of course, I consider them to be toss-ups. They've been 50-50s. I think they've just gone the Hurricanes' way. I think in the first one, Carolina was a bit more of the better team, although the Penguins came out firing in the first period. Carolina really stepped up towards the late stages of the first and into the second. Even in the third, Penguins caught a little bit of fire. They tied the game, but lost in overtime on a fairly controversial non-call. And then the second game, thought the Penguins came out firing. Carolina then struck back. I thought Pittsburgh was a bit better in the third before Carolina was able to win the game, courtesy of former Pittsburgh Penguin Jordan Staal, who just terrorized Chad Ruhwedel on that play and then cleaned out Sidney Crosby 4 straight times in the faceoff circle. That is very hard to do. Trust you know that just as well as I do. Do you think the Hurricanes just have an edge over the Penguins right now, just because they've actually won 7 of their last 9 against the Penguins, or do you think it's just due to sometimes the games are just not going your way? I figured I would ask you about that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. Honestly, I think, like you said, especially these past couple games, it just being toss-ups, and the Hurricanes just coming out on the winning end. But I do think, that the Hurricanes, they've, for so long had been the team that got bullied in the Metro, and now they're the team that does the bullying, so to speak, uh, figuratively, not literally, of course, but you know they they know what to do to get these wins. Their core has experience now. They all have several years of experience under the belt. They played the Penguins many times. They know how to beat this team, and that's just from the player aspect. They stacked their roster really well for the most part, and then also some really good coaching as well, between, Rod Brind'Amour and Tim Gleason. They're a really well coached team, and when it comes, to practicing out on the ice, watching the film, whatever, you know, they're paying attention. They know how to beat the Penguins now. Um, Jordan Stahl is one of the best guys in the faceoff circle in the NHL. Like, he can hang with the best of them. Like you said, cleaned out Sidney Crosby 4 times in a row, and they're also feeling themselves now. And like you said, they've won 7 of their last 9 against Pittsburgh. They're like, we can do this. Look at that. We beat them 7 of the last 9 times we played them. This isn't a game where, you're like, oh God, like back on Sunday, when the Panthers and Steelers were playing, it was definitely a game where I'm like, oh God, that ain't going to end well. That's how Penguins and Hurricanes used to be. It's not that way anymore. The Hurricanes know how to beat this team.
Yeah, and I also do think it comes down to the Hurricanes are a bit of a faster team than the Penguins. I think the Penguins have struggled against
age.
Yeah, no, you're right, and they have struggled against some of the faster teams in the league this season. For example, Montreal's actually had a decent start. Penguins have struggled to maintain their speed. The Hurricanes, I think it's been the same thing. The Maple Leafs, they lost 2 out of 3 against them. I think they struggle with their speed. And I think that just comes down to the Penguins are the oldest team in the league, and they are by age. That was their bread and butter 6 years ago, but that's just that's not them to a degree anymore. They can still play that speed skill game. It's just they can't do it as well as they used to. So when you have a younger, more refreshed, faster team like Carolina coming in, it's not going to be the best time, I think, at times. But these 2 games have still been a lot of fun. But I want to ask you this for the third one: how do you think Carolina makes it 3 in a row against Pittsburgh this season? What do they need to do?
Power play. Like I said, I think 5-on-5. It's gonna be a lot of what we've already seen. In this game, it's gonna be for the wrestling fans out there, like FTR and the Briscoes. Their 3 matches they had this year, they're all phenomenal matches. It's gonna be the same with this. All of these games could have gone either way. That's going to be the same with this one. There's going to be that one difference maker, and that's going to be the power play for the Hurricanes, or just special teams in general. I guess you could kind of lump it together because of the way the Penguins power play has been. But the Hurricanes power play has really got to show up because, like I mentioned, in that Detroit game, that was the difference maker, and it's going to be a difference maker here because these teams are so evenly matched. Obviously, every goal counts in every game, but a game like this where, like we said at the beginning of the episode, it's going to be a low-scoring game. Winning teams probably don't have like 3 goals, and one of them probably an empty net. Every goal counts, and the Hurricanes need to come up with a power play goal in this game. And for you, for the Penguins, what is it going to take for the Penguins to avoid the regular season sweep?
That's a great question. Jared, and I do think actually they play one more time.
Oh, they do, don't they? Yeah.
I think they play down in Raleigh after the new year. I believe it's January or February, if I'm not mistaken. So they do have one more game against them. But I really think it comes down to, weathering that storm, no pun intended, against the Hurricanes, because, they're going to be more refreshed for this one than they were for the Sunday one, because the Hurricanes, they were coming off that win against the Dallas Stars. If I'm not mistaken, it was against Dallas.
Mhm.
So you would think, oh, back to back, Penguins have the advantage, and they did, at least for the first half of the first period. They came out, let in shots. I believe it was 10-2. Hurricanes then found their game, credit to them, and they were able to win. But I do think it's for the Penguins, they have to weather that storm, because Carolina is going to come out firing. They did that in the first matchup. They did that at times in the second matchup. And, they're going to have to be ready for it. The good part for the Penguins with this is at home. The Penguins have been playing very well at home as of late, 5-6 game winning streak for them. Tristan Jarry has to be one of their best players yet again. 11-0-2 in his last 13 starts. He has been terrific. And I really do think a lot of the Penguins' early season struggles were due to the special teams being met. And then Tristan he was playing hurt. So I didn't think of it that much at the time, Jared. But now with the level that he's playing at and how the team has really turned around, I definitely think that was a big reason why the team was struggling. So he has to be dynamite. I would very much expect him to start on this one. I do not think Casey DeSmith is going to get the start like he did on Sunday. And then, special teams as well. I want to see the power play be a bit better than they were against the Hurricanes. Can they make it 10 games in a row? Will the star players be the star players? And then, let's see if we can get some depth scoring. At times, the depth has not been that good this season. They're battling a couple injuries right now with Josh Archibald a bit banged up. Ryan Poehling left Tuesday night's game with a lower body injury. If he can't go, rookie Drew O'Connor would slot in to the lineup. I want to see, can they get some of that depth scoring in this one? Former Carolina Hurricane Brock McGinn, he scored in that last one. Could he get one in this? And, what's the matchup against Jordan Staal? He killed the Penguins in that game on Sunday in multiple ways. Is Sid going to get any revenge on him in the faceoff circle? Is, Chad Ruhwedel going to play a bit better defensively in his own zone against Jordan? He made a huge difference in that game. And again, I talked about this with Kat on Monday. I've seen him play like that so many times over the years. I'm just not surprised anymore, because it's Jordan. So, those are the big keys I'm looking out for in this one. And can the Penguins, continue to play well against some of the team's best players? In this case, Nichas and Svechnikov.
Yeah, definitely I agree with all that, honestly. And a lot of what you said goes for the Hurricanes as well. Depth scoring will be big. You can't always rely on the big name guys to carry the load. One guy that you are going to have to look out for is Stefan Nazin. He's, came up, from Chicago this year, getting another crack at the NHL, and he's really taking advantage of it. Back when we were running 11-7 for a couple games, he was playing really well alongside who other than Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook there on that third line. And he's been really freaking good this year. He also scored a freaking penalty shot goal a while back too. He's definitely going to be a guy you're going to have to look out for. And both teams, if they're to come away with the win, both teams are going to have to play full, complete games. As Jordan's been saying a lot this year, no passengers. Everyone's got to be out there and pulling their load and doing their job. And that's going to go for both teams, but obviously more so the Hurricanes, because we want to come with the win. We want to go up 3-0 in the series this year. You're right. They do play again after the new year on January 14th down here in Raleigh. But final prediction for the game, I'm going another 3-2 Hurricanes win. I'll say, that third goal is probably going to be an empty netter.
A 3-2 win with an empty netter, Jared?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I'll go with that.
So in that instance, would the Penguins then get another 6-on-5 goal to make it 3-2 before time runs out?
No.
No? Okay. Interesting.
No. Hurricanes just went in 3-2. Penguins pulled the goalie, probably Tristan Jarry, because it's tied at 2, getting pretty late into the third. And then just for you, I'll say Jordan Staal gets the empty netter too.
That just sounds terrible. But hey, maybe Chris Letang makes another miraculous play on the empty net, as he did on Sunday when it easily could have been a 4-2.
Yeah.
final there. I do think the Penguins get a little bit of a revenge. I actually got the final score right for the Ranger game, so I'm flying pretty high in this one. I'm going to go. I'm going to actually go 4-2 Penguins with an empty net goal to seal it at the end, courtesy of Jake Gensel. He is Mr. Empty Net on this team. I do think the Penguins are able to show, I think, the fan base and the rest of some of the people around the league that they can beat this team, at least at home. And I do think they will get 2 crucial points in this one. And then, of course, they will get the empty netter at the end, courtesy of Jake. But that's my prediction.
Yeah, I will say overtime would not surprise me in this game.
Me either.
If our predictions are wrong, which, let's be honest, they probably will be. Mine especially, it'll probably be wrong. The score will probably be right, but the other stuff probably wrong. But honestly, again, overtime would not surprise me with this game at all. Because again, these teams are so evenly matched, it wouldn't surprise me. And the Hurricanes went to overtime a lot as of late, so it'd be pretty on brand, really.
Honestly, you're right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to overtime because a lot of Metro games have gone to overtime this season. So everyone just wants the 3-point games. But I'm really looking forward to this one. It's a chance for the Penguins to get some revenge. They need to be able to know how to beat this team because if they do make the playoffs, there's a good chance that they will see Carolina. Even if they don't play them in round 1, if they get to round 2, like Carolina did last year, the Penguins would have played the Hurricanes. So they need to figure it out against this team in a very quick manner.
Yeah, they really do. If the Penguins are wanting to, again, make that push. But at the end of the day, we got to get through the game tomorrow. We got to get through the game in January and then just the rest of the regular season. But good luck to you. In the meantime, make sure you're following Locked On Hurricanes on Twitter and Instagram at @LO_Hurricanes and myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And Hunter, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. The show's Twitter is at @LO_Penguins, and you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. That's an ad-free version for you. Then, of course, subscribe to the show on YouTube.
Yep. And again, best of luck to you, unless it's in fantasy football, because you're still my most hated rival in that. But
he's mad that I took the title from him last year, guys.
Yes, I know. But you guys have a great rest of your day, and let's go Canes. And in Hunter's case, I suppose, let's go Penguins.
Let's go Pens.